Berkshire Hathaway's profit doubled last quarter. That headline wrote itself within minutes of the release on Saturday. Net earnings of $25.67 billion, up 107% from a year ago. And the number is real, crew. Every dollar of it is in the filing. But what that number measures is not what most people reading the headline assume it measures. And Berkshire, to its enormous credit, prints a warning saying exactly that in its own release every single quarter. So tonight, two stories. The number under the number, and, buried at the bottom of the cash drawer, a genuine piece of news the doubled profit headline completely swallowed. Here is the decomposition, and it is exact to the dollar. $25.67 billion of net earnings splits into two very different piles. Pile 1, $12.68 billion of investment gains. Pile 2, $12.98 billion of operating earnings, the money the actual businesses made. The railroad, the insurers, the factories, the utilities. Add them, 25.67 to the dollar. So when you hear profit doubled, understand that roughly half the profit is not profit from operating anything. It is the scoreboard of a stock portfolio, and mostly a scoreboard of stocks Berkshire did not even sell. $10.9 billion of those gains are unrealized, paper movement on shares still sitting in the vault, next to $1.8 billion in gains it actually cashed. Why does paper movement land in the profit line at all? An accounting rule, adopted in 2018, requires Berkshire to run every up and down tick of its equity portfolio through net income every quarter, whether or not a single share changes hands. Apple, American Express, Coca-Cola have a good 3 months? Reported profit balloons. A bad 3 months? It craters. The businesses underneath did neither. And one more wrinkle the doubling rests on. The year-ago quarter Berkshire is being compared against was itself dented by a $3.8 billion write-down on Kraft Heinz. Double off a dented base, and the arithmetic gets flattering fast. And do not take my word for any of this, because Berkshire says it about itself in print every quarter. Here is the company's own warning from Saturday's release, verbatim. The amount of investment gains, losses, in any given quarter is usually meaningless and delivers figures for net earnings per share that can be extremely misleading to investors who have little or no knowledge of accounting rules. Read that again, crew. The company whose profit doubled is telling you, in its own release, that the number producing the headline is usually meaningless and extremely misleading. That is not a critic talking. That is the scoreboard warning you about itself. So what is the honest number? Operating earnings, $12.98 billion, up 16.3% from a year ago. And because this desk eats its own vegetables, even that number gets a caveat. A currency swing on Berkshire's overseas debt carried a meaningful chunk of that growth. Look at the 5 named businesses and the picture is steadier. The BNSF Railroad up 6%, the energy utilities up 27%, manufacturing and retail up 24%, insurance underwriting actually down 13%. Added up, and the real Berkshire had a good, solid, unspectacular quarter. Growing, single digits to modest double digits, the way railroads and insurance companies actually grow. Nothing doubled. Nothing needed to. Now open the cash drawer, because here is the story the doubled profit headline swallowed whole. Berkshire's cash pile fell, $365.5 billion at the end of June, down roughly $32 billion from the record $397 set in March. Why? Because for the first time in 14 quarters, 3.5 years, Berkshire bought more stock than it sold. $23.5 billion in purchases against under $4 billion in sales, including a roughly $10 billion stake in Alphabet, and $4.5 billion of buybacks of its own shares on top. 14 quarters of Warren Buffett famously sitting on a growing mountain of cash, and the quarter after Greg Abel takes the wheel, the mountain starts moving. That, crew, is actual news. It was on page 2. So here is the takeaway, and it is a reading lesson. The headline said profit doubled. The filing said, in its own words, that the number behind that headline is usually meaningless. The honest number said a good company had a good quarter, and the buried number said the most patient investor on earth just started spending the pile. $19 billion net into stocks in 3 months for the first time since 2022. Who benefits from the headline version? Anyone selling you a hot market. Who pays? Every retail reader who took a mark-to-market scoreboard for muscle and missed that the real signal was in the cash drawer. When a company prints a warning directly underneath its own headline number, read the warning. It is usually the most honest sentence in the release. Mind the board. I'm Marcus, and this is Pixel Politics.